Letter V. Customary Education and Employment of the Inhabitants of Nantucket. The easiest way of becoming acquainted with the modes of thinking, the rules of conduct, and the prevailing manners of any people is to examine what sort of education they give their children, how they treat them at home, and what they are taught in their places of public worship. At home their tender minds must be early struck with the gravity, the serious though cheerful deportment of their parents. They are inured to a principle of subordination, arising neither from sudden passions nor inconsiderate pleasure. They are gently held by an uniform silk cord which unites softness and strength. A perfect equanimity prevails in most of their families, and bad example hardly ever sows in their hearts the seeds of future and similar faults. They are corrected with tenderness, nursed with the most affectionate care, clad with that decent plainness from which they observe their parents never to depart. In short, by the force of example, which is superior even to the strongest instinct of nature, more than by precepts, they learn to follow the steps of their parents, to despise ostentatiousness as being sinful. They acquire a taste for that neatness for which their fathers are so conspicuous. They learn to be prudent and saving. The very tone of voice with which they are always addressed establishes in them that softness of diction which ever after becomes habitual. Frugal, sober, orderly parents, attached to their business, constantly following some useful occupation, never guilty of riot, dissipation, or other irregularities, cannot fail of training up children to the same uniformity of life and manners. If they are left with fortunes, they are taught how to save them, and how to enjoy them with moderation and decency. If they have none, they know how to venture, how to work and toil, as their fathers have done before them. If they fail of success, there are always in this island, and wherever this society prevails, established resources founded on the most benevolent principles. At their meetings, they are taught the few, the simple tenets of their sect, tenets as fit to render men sober, industrious, just, and merciful, as those delivered in the most magnificent churches and cathedrals. They are instructed in the most essential duties of Christianity, so as not to offend the divinity by the commission of evil deeds, to dread his wrath and the punishments he has denounced. They are taught at the same time to have a proper confidence in his mercy, while they deprecate his justice. As every sect, from their different modes of worship, and their different interpretations of some parts of the Scriptures, necessarily have various opinions and prejudices, which contribute something in forming their characteristics in society, so those of the Friends are well known. Obedience to the laws, even to non-resistance, justice, goodwill to all, benevolence at home, sobriety, meekness, neatness, love of order, fondness, and appetite for commerce. They are as remarkable here for those virtues as at Philadelphia, which is their American cradle and the boast of that society. At school they learn to read and to write a good hand until they are 12 years old. They are then in general put apprentices to the cooper's trade, which is the second essential branch of business followed here. At 14 they are sent to sea, where in their leisure hours their companions teach them the art of navigation, which they have an opportunity of practicing on the spot. They learn the great and useful art of working a ship in all the different situations which the sea and wind so often require, and surely there cannot be a better or a more useful school of that kind in the world. Then they go gradually through every station of rowers, steersmen, and harpooners. Thus they learn to attack, to pursue, to overtake, to cut, to dress their huge game, and after having performed several such voyages, and perfected themselves in this business, they are fit either for the counting-house or the chase. The first proprietors of this island or rather the first founders of this town, began their career of industry with a single whaleboat, with which they went to fish for cod. The small distance from their shores at which they caught it enabled them soon to increase their business, and those early successes first led them to conceive that they might likewise catch the whales which hitherto sported undisturbed on their banks. After many trials and several miscarriages, they succeeded. Thus they proceeded step by step. The profits of one successful enterprise helped them to purchase and prepare better materials for a more extensive one. As these were attended with little costs, their profits grew greater. The south sides of the island from east to west were divided into 4 equal parts, and each part was assigned to a company of 6, which though thus separated, still carried on their business in common. In the middle of this distance they erected a mast, provided with a sufficient number of rounds, and near it they built a temporary hut, where 5 of the associates lived, whilst the 6th, from his high station, carefully looked toward the sea, in order to observe the spouting of the whales. As soon as any were discovered, the sentinel descended, the whale-boat was launched, and the company went forth in quest of their game. It may appear strange to you that so slender a vessel as an American whale-boat, containing 6 diminutive beings, should dare to pursue, and to attack in its native element, the largest and strongest fish that nature has created. Yet by the exertions of an admirable dexterity, improved by a long practice, in which these people are become superior to any other whalemen, by knowing the temper of the whale after her first movement, and by many other useful observations, they seldom failed to harpoon it, and to bring the huge leviathan on the shores. Thus they went on, until the profits they made enabled them to purchase larger vessels, and to pursue them farther, when the whales quitted their coasts. Those who failed in their enterprises returned to the cod fisheries, which had been their first school and their first resource. They even began to visit the banks of Cape Breton, the Isle of Sable, and all the other fishing places with which this coast of America abounds. By degrees they went a-whaling to Newfoundland, to the Gulf of St. Lawrence, to the Straits of Belial, the coast of Labrador, Davis's Straits, even to Cape Desolation in 70° of latitude, where the Danes carry on some fisheries in spite of the perpetual severities of that inhospitable climate. In process of time they visited the Western Islands, the latitude of 34° famous for that fish, the Brazils, the coast of Guinea. Would you believe that they have already gone to the Falkland Islands, and that I have heard several of them talk of going to the South Sea? Their confidence is so great, and their knowledge of this branch of business so superior to that of any other people, that they have acquired a monopoly of this commodity. Such were their feeble beginnings, such the infancy and the progress of their maritime schemes. Such is now the degree of boldness and activity to which they are arrived in their manhood. After their examples, several companies have been formed in many of our capitals, where every necessary article of provisions, implements, and timber are to be found. But the industry exerted by the people of Nantucket hath hitherto enabled them to rival all their competitors. Consequently, this is the greatest mart for oil, whalebone, and spermaceti on the continent. It does not follow, however, that they are always successful. This would be an extraordinary field indeed where the crops should never fail. Many voyages do not repay the original cost of fitting out. They bear such misfortunes like true merchants, and as they never venture their all like gamesters, they try their fortunes again. The latter hope to win by chance alone, the former by industry, well-judged speculation, and some hazard. I was there when Mr. Sage had missed one of his vessels. She had been given over for lost by everybody, but happily arrived before I came away, after an absence of 13 months. She had met with a variety of disappointments on the station she was ordered to, and rather than return empty, The people steered for the coast of Guinea, where they fortunately fell in with several whales, and brought home upward of 600 barrels of oil beside bone. Those returns are sometimes disposed of in the towns of the continent, where they are exchanged for such commodities as are wanted, but they are most commonly sent to England, where they always sell for cash. When this is intended, a vessel larger than the rest is fitted out to be filled with oil on the spot where it is found and made, and thence she sails immediately for London. This expedient saves time, freight, and expense, and from that capital they bring back whatever they want. They employ also several vessels in transporting lumber to the West Indian Islands, from whence they procure in return the various productions of the country, which they afterwards exchange, wherever they can hear of an advantageous market. Being extremely acute, they well know how to improve all the advantages which the combination of so many branches of business constantly affords. The spirit of commerce, which is the simple art of a reciprocal supply of wants, is well understood here by everybody. They possess, like the generality of the Americans, a large share of native penetration, activity, and good sense, which lead them to a variety of other secondary schemes, too tedious to mention. They are well acquainted with the cheapest method of procuring lumber from Kennebec River, Penobscot, etc., pitch and tar from North Carolina, flour and biscuit from Philadelphia, beef and pork from Connecticut. They know how to exchange their codfish and West Indian produce for those articles which they are continually either bringing to their island, or sending off to other places where they are wanted. By means of all these commercial negotiations, they have greatly cheapened the fitting out of their whaling fleets, and therefore much improved their fisheries. They are indebted for all these advantages not only to their national genius, but to the poverty of their soil. And as a proof of what I have so often advanced, look at the Vineyard, their neighboring island, which is inhabited by a set of people as keen and as sagacious as themselves. Their soil being in general extremely fertile, they have fewer navigators, though they are equally well situated for the fishing business. As in my way back to Falmouth on the Main, I visited this sister island, permit me to give you, as concisely as I can, a short but true description of it. I am not so limited in the principal object of this journey as to wish to confine myself to the single spot of Nantucket.